Hey friends, Ash here with Gents. Hope that you're doing well. So it's been a while since my fragrances from Galleria Parfums were released. Today, I want to talk to you guys about how they came to be, the whole behind the scenes, and the reason that I stepped away and decided not to work with them anymore. So we're going to go into details on how my fragrances were made, how they came to be, and also Navitus and the issues that I had with the whole company. So let's jump into it. Let's break this down. So I guess a quick rundown on Navitus Parfums first. So this fragrance line came out in collaboration with another fragrance YouTuber, Redolescent Steven, and he was the creative director of the first number of fragrances that came out from the house. So it was 7 fragrances he creatively directed, little pause, and then 3 more that he creatively directed that came out afterward. I found out at some point that all those fragrances were actually done at the same time. They just broke them up. So you had the 7 and then the 3, but realistically, they were all done at the same time. In between that, you had this one, Viva More, which was a collaboration with Rached Belhassa. Money Kicks is his online handle. We'll talk about that one more in a little bit. But that's what Navitus Parfum was up until the point that I got involved with Galleria. So in case you're unaware of Galleria, this is a fragrance line, 7 fragrances that I creatively directed that came out in 2020. So I think it officially launched in October of 2020. I think. Yeah, like right at the end of October, I think it was. Of course, some people weren't happy because some people are going to be always unhappy with any YouTuber related fragrance. There's a group of people that basically think, oh, you make videos on YouTube, you don't deserve to creatively direct anything. I hate that for you. I will be unhappy that you had a hand in making anything. So of course, some people were gonna dislike any YouTuber fragrance release, and then that's what happened with these. Some people were really unhappy. And then I also got a ton of people that had amazing feedback and loved them. So that was all worth it. Let's go over, starting from the beginning, how this came to be. So Navitus Parfums, I actually bought a discovery set of the first 7, and I did first impressions on those, and most of the fragrances I didn't actually like very much. To be honest, I probably could have been a little more tactful in the way that I did the video, but still my opinions stay the same. They don't change. I probably could have just gone about it in a better way, you could say. So at the end of April 2020, I was contacted by Navitus Parfums. Pretty big surprise, all things considered, because like I said, that video was not overall a positive one. And they were wanting to collaborate with me on fragrance releases for Navitus. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole rundown. It was a really long email with lots of information in there, but some of the main points. First off, complete creative control as far as the fragrances go. So that's a big one, obviously. If you're going to be making something in collaboration with a perfumer, you want to have the control. You don't want to be the person who's kind of off in the background and you're shouting out, hey, maybe you could do this. And then they go, hey, shut up, we've got it. So complete creative control, really enticing. They also said that the fragrances would be sold online and also in physical stores across the United States, across Europe, and going into the Middle East as well. That sounds really good, you know, be able to go into a store all across the US or in Europe and be able to see the fragrances you creatively directed up there on the shelf. Like, oh, I helped do that. Wow. Turns out that never happened. Actually, the Galleria Parfum fragrances never made it into any physical stores, so that wasn't real life. And for that matter, the Navitus fragrances really aren't in very many stores. They're in like a few in the US, I think, but not all across the United States, all across Europe and all this stuff. In my opinion, being on a couple of websites is not the same as being in physical stores all over the country. And then the monetary aspect. And legitimately, the day I got this email was the day that my wife was giving birth to my daughter. So yeah, I was in the hospital when I got the email. It was an estimate, but they estimated that the amount that I should be able to pull from the launch, just the launch, nothing afterward, you know, not any additional sales as years go on or anything like that, just the launch, $125,000. So it got my attention, obviously. And no, I never sniffed close to that amount. That was another one of those things where you read it and you're like, wow, really? And the answer is no. No, not really. But at the time, I had no reason to doubt that. So that's what it said, and I was taking it at face value. Now, I had a phone call with the CEO of Navitus, and I thought about it, and I actually wrote them, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do it. That was on the 5th of May. And the reason I said I didn't want to do it was I didn't want to be associated with the Navitus line. It just didn't really appeal to me. I didn't want to kind of jump on there. And it's nothing against Steven, but Steven and I aren't, friends really. We don't talk, we don't hang out or anything. So it just seemed very odd to me because the whole Navitus line was put out there as this is Steven's line, right? He owns it. This is him. He makes all the shots. He calls all the shots, rather. He does everything. And on the phone call that I had with the CEO, I even asked, does Steven know that you're contacting me? Is he aware of this? The answer was no. So it just, to me, seemed weird to hitch onto that wagon. And so I declined. It was a lot of money, I felt like, that I was potentially flushing away, but I just didn't really want to go through with it. It didn't seem like a good match. So a few days go by, they say, okay, no problem. Best of luck with your channel and all that stuff. So then I get a follow-up email and they say, we've been thinking about it and we'd like to go ahead and offer you the opportunity to have your own brand, your own line, your own everything. So completely independent of Navitus. We would still be the ones that are investing in it. So we're covering the cost. We're hooking you up with the perfumers because I don't know if you guys know this, but it's really, 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 really difficult to get any of these big name flavoring houses to pay attention to you at all. So like if you're somebody who has no name, you're somebody who doesn't have a boatload of money and connections and stuff, and you try to reach out to Givaudan, IFF, Firmenich, any of these companies and say, hey, I'd love to start up a brand with you, good luck, because you're going to get through to no one. They will ignore you. You're not going to get anything. So I thought about it. I was like, man, that's not a bad gig because I get to work with all these perfumers. And it was a big list of perfumers that they sent me. Like, these are the people you're going to work with. Some of them did have fragrances that came out with Galleria. Other ones didn't. For one reason or another, if maybe the submissions that they sent on just didn't work as well or something. But like I said, a nice gig. You're gonna be able to make these fragrances, and the cost per kilogram, I should say, for Navitus and Galleria both really high. Some people would like to maybe, talk crap who don't know anything, but in terms of cost per kilogram, I actually did see emails from the flavoring houses themselves with the cost per kilogram on there for these fragrances and also comparables. And so you're talking about big name niche houses. The cost per kilogram of these, whether you like it or not, deal with it, are comparable or even above releases from brands like Kilian or Xerjoff. So the fragrances never were the problem. Just, I guess, getting that out of the way right at the beginning. So I sat on it, simmered on it for about a week. And I said, okay, let's go ahead and move forward. And from there, it was pretty quick. The briefs were out that I had already written actually within a few days. The perfumer started working on them and I didn't get them all in at once. Each flavoring house kind of sent it whenever they had stuff ready to go. Then you start working through all the fragrances. You get the submissions in, you try them out. If you like them, maybe you set them aside and say, okay, these are the modifications I want on this. If you think something isn't even worth modding, you set it to the side and you're like, thank you for that submission. It's nice, but it's not what I'm looking for. And you go through the whole process. So you're getting submissions in, you're trying them constantly, wearing them, taking notes, asking for modifications, working on everything to get it how you want. And that takes a while. So this was all gravy at this point because nothing had been finalized or anything. You're just going through the creative process. That was pretty smooth. And you got to understand as well, the whole time that I'm going through this process, my understanding is that Steven has Redolescence and Steven is doing that. And then I have Galleria and I'm doing that, and that's it. I even specifically asked, are you guys wanting to do any more fragrance lines with anybody else at all? Because if you are, I'm not interested. And it's not because I'm trying to be elitist. It's because I know the perception is that if a lot of people start coming out with their own stuff through this company, it's gonna look like a cash grab. I knew that from the beginning. And I said specifically, I don't want to be involved. if you want to do lines with other people. And I'm not saying don't do lines with other people. I'm just saying I don't want to be involved with that. And they assured me, no, that's not going on. So time keeps going on. We start working through the packaging. Now, this is the finalized packaging, obviously, of Galleria Parfums. Some people have said, oh, it looks like Mancera, like you ripped off Mancera. They're definitely both cylindrical bottles. Outside of that, not really. This is a stock bottle. It's a really nice one, really good one. It's Italian glass, but it's still a stock bottle because custom bottles weren't made. They weren't available to be made, not with the parameters set within the project. And in actuality, the bottle I wanted was more like a gin bottle, like a nice gin style bottle with multiple sides. I sent off pictures of like different designs of gin bottles that I thought were really cool. And I was like, why don't we try to go, for something like this? Didn't happen. And I also wanted a specific piece of artwork for each fragrance. So what ended up happening was on the cards, we went with stock photos, but my original idea, what I wanted to do was to have a custom piece of artwork done for each fragrance and obviously pay for it, of course, but to put the name of the artist who had done the painting that went along with the fragrance on there and on the packaging and everything as well. Because the original idea, which really didn't come to fruition, was that the reason it was a Galleria Parfum, was tying it in with artwork. And that was one way I was going to do it and then flesh it out more as time went, but obviously it didn't happen. So anyhow, we're starting to shore things up. And then I noticed that Big Beard Business made an announcement that he had some fragrances coming out. And when I saw that, and this is nothing against Beard, I'm pretty sure he didn't know. And I know Dallas at Chaos Fragrances didn't know, but he made an announcement and I remember seeing it and thinking, oh crap, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be Navitus. Just the way he was talking about it, because the video that he did, like the way he said things, was partially what the Navitus people had said that, I should say things like, which I hadn't done because I kind of, for better or worse, end up doing things whichever way I want to do them. And so when I heard the words and I saw everything, I was like, oh God, no. So I reached out to the Navitus people and I said, guys, is this you? And they were like, yeah, that's us. And I remember being so pissed. And at that moment in time, I thought, man, like I was this close. Like I had typed up a long message and everything, sending it off and just saying, look, I'm pulling out, period. Like you can take the fragrances, do whatever, but I'm done. Because I knew at that moment, everything was gonna look so bad because, he's putting his stuff out. And again, it's not his fault, period. He didn't know. And then I'm putting my stuff out right after. And then I didn't even know it at the time, but then Dallas is putting his stuff out right after that. And I thought it looked so bad. And it took so much attention off of the fragrances as they are, and instead made it into this thing where it looks like a big cash grab. Like all of us got together or something, and we were all like, ha ha ha, I know what we can do, guys. Let's all put our fragrances out at the same time and make it where you can only get the discount during pre-release before anybody's had a chance to smell it. And we're gonna get all of our subscribers to buy it up, and we're gonna get all this money, and we're gonna go blow it or whatever. That's how, to me, it felt like it looked, and it pissed me off. So I was already really unhappy, but I had those 7 fragrances ready to go. It's one of those deals where, you've worked on them for months and months and you've tweaked them constantly, getting them in, saying, can I get these modifications the next week? You get modifications in, you try them out. You say, can I get modifications again? And just this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I had a spreadsheet that was like hundreds of lines. And it had each one of the modifications and the originals I had gotten in with what I thought about them, what changes could be made, all this stuff. And I was like, I've put in this much time. Let's write it out. So the fragrances come out, they launch, and that's when things change. So up until that point, it'd been pretty much, you are the one who's gonna decide what's done with the fragrances. Like when you make the videos, what you talk about, all that stuff. As soon as they launched, it was basically, we need you to give us a schedule when you're gonna put out videos that cover your fragrance and how you push them, like what you say, what days you're going to put those out. And they started saying like, you need to do 2 a week. And that's one of the things that you noticed. Well, I noticed. But the reason that these channels who had partnered up with Navitus and stuff were having to just pop out constant videos on it is because they're getting pressured to behind the scenes. Basically being told, look, you need to do this, period, because we put it in the contract that you're going to do it. And actually that was one of the things I had changed in the contract. I think originally it said that I had to do 2 videos a week or something like that for 6 months. So you can see how many videos that would be, where I would be promoting my fragrances, like shoving them down your throat. And I had it changed to say that that I would do videos as I saw fit, basically. So it was a mess. And actually this Vivamore, this was done apparently without Steven knowing about it. On a phone call, I had asked about it. I said, so Vivamore, that one, like, was that Steven teaming up with this Money Kicks guy, or how'd that work? And they were like, no, just Money Kicks did it and we just released it. But at the time I thought that it was like a collaborative effort. And so when Beard and Dallas, they came out with their fragrance releases, I realized really quickly, oh, this is essentially just a company that's going to get as many people under the umbrella as possible. And then it becomes like a self-fulfilling kind of deal where they tell every creator, you have to be pumping our stuff twice a week. And so it floods YouTube with just constant videos of all their stuff, which then gets people to buy it, is the idea. And then they just keep on getting more people, more videos, more sales, more people, more videos, more sales. This video's running long as hell. And that was really disheartening to me. And I had told them, hey, this is not good. I don't like this. I'm not happy. Now to top it all off, it starts to be very shifty feeling from my end, because they would tell me, okay, this many bottles have been sold. And I would say, well, is there a place I can check any of this, where I can see what's actually happening behind the scenes? Because that's kind of important. And I said, no. Big red flag, right? So none of us, me or any of the Navitus people, have any access to any tracking of any bottle sold, period. What I was told was, check with Max Aroma and they can give you a printout of what's been sold. And that's because Max Aroma, their distribution center, is who Navitus and Galleria use. As if that's actual tracking and data that you can look at and say, okay, well, this is doing well, this fragrance is doing well, that fragrance isn't doing well, you know what I mean? It's stuff that you should know if you creatively directed things. You want to know how they're doing, right? Instead, they would just say, we owe you this much money. And then if you would say, well, can I check that anywhere? They would legitimately just be like, no, trust us. So I was very unhappy. And then I did a few more briefs. I was planning on doing a couple more releases. And this is another thing, and this falls on me as well, because I didn't push back on this really. I should have pushed back. But when I was first approached, I was told the fragrance prices would be, somewhere around $125 to $135. And I thought, if we're making real niche fragrances and they're in that price range, that's cool, because we're talking Mancera prices. If we can get good quality, get them out at that price, awesome. Then when it came go time, they were priced at $205, and actually that was marked down of $205 retail full price, and that was marked down from, I think, like $235. So that was kind of crappy too, because while we're going through the whole process of creation, I was expecting at the end, this is the price we're going to be at. These are all lessons that I've learned, though, that I've been able to carry forward as I work on fragrances now. So it's not all a loss. So I worked on a few more briefs, and I actually sent those out. And I said specifically I wanted this next line to be more affordable, not priced at $205, down at that original $125, $135. Those fragrances never came to be. And that's because I pulled out of the whole thing before that came to fruition. I was actually in the process of bringing on some friends, some other YouTubers, smaller YouTubers who were going to do like one-off fragrances themselves as part of the line. But with me pulling out, that obviously all got blown up too, probably for the better, honestly. And with this whole thing as well, it's very interesting to know exactly what's happening behind the scenes and see stuff happen. I know that a lot of the creators that worked with Navitus are very unhappy, and it's because of the reasons that I mentioned, being almost forced or trying to be forced to do constant videos pumping their stuff, not being able to check any data at all, just having them say, here's how much you made, away with you. It's not good, because basically what they did with me and other people that I've spoken with, is they act very good cop and then bad cop. So as long as you shut up and you do exactly what they tell you to do, they're good cop. As soon as you question anything, it changes like that. And then it goes from, hey, we're friends, to do this or you're gonna hear from my lawyer. Another thing I don't like a whole lot, maybe you think it's a big deal, maybe you don't, but is they'll take submissions from somebody else's brief, repackage it, send it off to someone else and say, oh, this is part of your submissions there. See if you like it. Just as an example, in case that didn't make sense, pretend that this submission is one that I got myself for a brief that I wrote for a boozy fragrance with a perfumer known for boozy fragrances. And you really like it, but you end up going with another one that's based around coffee and cognac instead. So you say, this submission was great. I really like it. I like that apricot brandy kind of feel, but not for me. So that submission is now off to the side. But then you come to find out that that submission was taken and sent off to other people as well. And they were told, hey, this is part of your submissions. And then somebody thinks that's a submission for their brief and they take it and release it as their own thing. It's just kind of weird. And when you see it, you just go, what is going on here? Jeez. Ultimately, the end of me working with Galleria Parfum was not great. There was a lot of back and forth. There were threats thrown out, and ultimately I just decided it's really not worth pursuing this anymore. So in October of last year, my contract was officially up. I was released and free to work with other people, which is what I've been doing. And I can say that taking what I learned and being able to apply that now is really beneficial. And being able to say, no, we need to keep the price point here, under 100, or we need to do this with this fragrance, we need to do that. It's really nice. And another thing, it's really nice being able to communicate directly myself with the perfumer or the flavoring house. Because one thing that Navitus does is they don't allow the creative director to speak to the perfumers or the flavoring houses, period. So one of the problems with that is everything has to go through Navitus. So if I want a modification, I have to send it off to Navitus and say, hey, here's what I want. And then they send it off to the flavoring house. And then the flavoring house sends it to them. And then they send it to you. Sometimes you get lucky and you're put on copy to where you can see something. You can see the email string that they have going on. But for the most part, you're not allowed to communicate with them. So even though I saw emails back and forth with the perfumers and the flavoring houses both, and I could see the cost per kilogram, and I could see the perfumers' notes and the perfumers' breakdown of the fragrance that they had submitted and all that stuff, I could see it. I still couldn't reach out to them. That's a big no-no. Don't do it. So ultimately, I just saw how everything was continuing. I didn't want to be part of it anymore, and I pulled out, and it wasn't very pleasant. And this is absolutely nothing against any of the other YouTubers, because pretty much everybody's kept in the dark. And I know that because I've spoken to them. So you had CJ City TV, Bowtie Fragrance Guy, you had Monica, Dallas, Beard, Steven, and I know there were other YouTubers reached out to as well. Basically anybody who has a following above a certain threshold. And I know that none of them knew what they were getting into, because I didn't. And talking to them, I know they didn't. Wrapping everything up, I think it's just the frustration of everything is the reason that I'm even making the video. Today, for example, got an email from somebody, a subscriber. Thank you so much, by the way, for the support. They said they bought 3 bottles of Jet Black Enigma because they liked it so much, which is awesome. And they bought a Galleria Parfum Discovery set. Now, within the Galleria Parfum Discovery set, there's a little card, and it basically says, hey, send an email to care@galleriaparfum.com and say, here is my order number. Can I get the discount code? And they give you a discount code you can use to buy full-size bottles with. So this person emailed me and said, hey, I bought the Discovery set. I'm just trying to get a code so I can buy some bottles. I've emailed them numerous times. No response. It's like going into a black hole. Can you check it out for me? And it's just the way they go about things. that frustrates me so much today, just like it did back when it started frustrating me. They get these high quality fragrances made with these big name perfumers, and then the way they go about everything, in my opinion, is wrong. They want you to push hard every time they have one of these sales where it's like, buy one, get this much off, buy two, get this much off, buy three, get this much off. They always want you to push it, and they have no customer service. Just ignore anything that comes to them. Don't even bother trying to get into stores because you make more money per bottle selling online. And it's like these fragrances that you spent so much time on, both me and the Navitus people, these fragrances you spent so much time on get viewed as like a money spigot. So when you need an infusion, it's like, hey, just everybody push the sales. And then after that, you know, they ramp the price back up to full retail. And it frustrates me because if you could make money, like pretty good money selling these at whatever, 125, 135, just put it at that price and then maybe give a 10% off code or something. So yeah, it's a whole thing. All right, that's it. I'm gonna peace out. Galleria Parfum. I still stand by the fragrances. I love them. I think that they're really, really, really nice. I was trying to walk this line between appeasing niche people and appeasing designer people at the same time. I think that was maybe a mistake. I should have just leaned into whichever way I wanted to go, I guess. But I still think that they smell wonderful, and they do definitely hold up. I'm out. Thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for your support. Stay safe out there. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video.